Hey, welcome to another edition of JavaScript Funct-on-ions. I'd like to welcome you to another day of trying to peel back the layers of understanding functions and the many personalities that it has in the JavaScript ecosystem. Today we're going to look at something that's particularly important from a knowledge base and also for the abilities of understanding the how this works and being able to really comprehend what is going on and what this gives you when it is used when you new up an instance of that function. So we're going to take a look at, first of all, how the how the function is set up, and then also how it can then be transferred from the original setup without having to use this or new into then using this and using new. So just so you get a good idea of actually what this is doing. It kind of just eliminates some extra code that we have to write and stashes it under the hood and makes it to where we don't necessarily have to worry about that code. But let's go ahead and just get right into it. I'm going to start by writing a function that is not using this. And what we're going to do is we're going to see that both of the outputs, the first one without using this or new, and see how the object that is created is the same as when we transferred from to use this and also the new keyword. So we're going to create a function, the usual good old person, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and, each time you create a new instance, is that what you're doing is you're creating a new object. And so really, if you think about that process, is that what you're really doing is under the hood is you're just doing object create, and then object create will create that new empty object for you. Now, seeing that we're passing in the params name and age, all we're going to do is we're going to put those onto the object, the output object. And so we're going to have the output for age set to output age. And then all we do is we return that output. So let's give that a shot here. And I'm going to say myself is a person and my age. Let's see what that gives us. Let me start. Okay, so here you can see that I get the name and I get the age back. Let's create another instance. We'll create my wife, Jen. And there you see it. So what's happened here is that we've actually, each time that we've called the function person, and so we passed in the name and the age, and then inside the body of the function is that we create a new empty object, and then we put on that object the properties name and age, and then we just return that object. Now, just to make sure that we're actually doing this properly, is let's convert this now to using this and the new keyword. So what happens is that when you use this and you use new, is that JavaScript handles two aspects of this that we don't have to. So first of all, we don't have to create the new object. Second of all, we don't have to return it. And so all we do is now is that we're going to just add this rather than the output. And now you'll see that we have undefined. but that's because we now have to create a new instance. Now you'll see that when we create the new instance is that we've got the same results. So what's happening underneath the hood when you're using this is that it's pretty much doing what we just did originally, where we had the output being assigned to an empty object, and then we added any properties we needed to on that output object, and then we returned that output object. And so what's happening when you're using this is that it's under the hood creating the object for you, and then it's returning it. And that's what's given the ability to, when you new up an instance of this person, is that it is creating the object under the hood, and it is assigning the values, property values, and then it's returning this. And so that's where, if you need, if somebody was to ask you how this and it works underneath of the hood, is that it's pretty simple to let to show how really it's just use an object create, and then it's adding any properties it needs to on that object, and then returning that object. And just so we can make sure that we're seeing the same thing, let's just do. Let me just copy this. Let's just copy the whole thing. Let's just see how it works. So let's start with what we had originally. So we're going to change these back to our output object and not have to use new. Let's see how this works. Okay, so we have the whole function for person stored in memory. We're getting ready to execute the constant Rob, and at this point in time we don't know what it is because it hasn't been executed yet, but it's getting ready to be invoked. So we're going to create a new execution context, and it's going to go inside of the person function, and it's going to pass in the answer, the Rob and 43 into the parameter placeholders name and age. So we can see here that we have name Rob, age 43, but we don't have any output yet. So if we go forward now, we start to see that we've created the empty object, and now we start to add these properties onto the object, and then we return the object. And so now Rob is pointing to this object, Rob 43. Let's now run another one here to where we run into this execution context for Jen, and we'll see that the same thing is going to happen where we create a new object for Jen, and then we add these properties onto the output object, and then we return the output object. And so now we have Rob and Jen with these two objects. So now let's go back and edit this, where we're not going to need to create the object or return it. Rather, we're just going to use this. And new up a person. Let's see what the differences are. Okay, so again we have the whole function that's stored in memory, and it's got a reference in the global frame to person. And now when we call person and we new it up, is that when we create that execution context, we automatically get this keyword, and this keyword points to the object. So as before, when we had output that was pointing to the object, now we have it to where this is the object. And so the same thing happens, is where it adds the name and the age, and then we get the automatic return value of this automatically, and then we get the same thing. we get Rob with the name and the age. Same thing here is that we have a new person execution context, and we automatically get this, which is an object, and then the inputs of name and age, which are set to Jen and 45, and then it's going to build the object with the name and the age, and then it's going to return the output. So if you need to understand what's happening underneath of the hood with this, is that when you're using this, pretty much what JavaScript is doing for you is that it is automatically creating the empty object for you, and that empty object is this. So that this keyword automatically comes when you new up a function, and so and then instead of adding properties to the object that you would have created, all you have to do is add it to this, because this is now the object. And then when you new up the person here, is that it automatically returns this. So what we're seeing here is that instead of having to manually create this object and return it, is that when you new up a function, is that all you really do is actually just substitute your object with this, and then it'll automatically create the object for you, and it will return this, which is the object. So I hope that gives you a better idea of how this works when you new up a new person, or new up any function, and then how this is what actually creates the object for you rather than manually do it. So that's just a small look of this underneath of the hood, and how it operates when you're not manually having to create the object yourself.